The human fleets finally entered Union space, and let me tell you, everyone in their hatches were watching. Some species jumped to the edge of Union space just to watch them warp in. Some spent their entire savings just to see the true might of humanity arrive. I, unfortunately, was on Sol Olympia in the war space, so I had to settle for holovids. My jaw dropped when Sol Nova was the first to warp in. This was no ordinary ship. The Olympia was rectangular, ugly by most standards, but effective. The Nova was a massive sphere, almost planet-like. Satellites orbited around it like small moons. As it walked in, it seemed like thousands of tiny asteroids orbited the ship. The Nova even pulls in asteroids around it? I couldn't help but ask. Colonel Smith looked at me with a slight chuckle and responded, "Ha! Asteroids? Son, those are her fighters." He lightly patted me on the back. "She is a beaut, though. Somehow always takes my breath away." I shook my head at what I was staring at. I could see it plain as day, but my mind refused to accept the reality. The alarm on the holovid announced the arrival of Sol Ark. This ship was completely foreign to me. It looked like something that belonged in the water, not space. Colonel Smith had to explain it was an imitation to an old aquatic warship, an aircraft carrier. The top of the ship was flat, and there were more aircraft and bombers than I can count on it. The strangest part? It was all exposed to the void. They were using gravity fields to hold them in place, and pseudo-atmospheric fields, so the men and women of the Ark could walk around without any protection from the colder space. The end of the ship's field went down as hundreds of ships began to taxi on the runway. "Ah, the growlers are being released. The Ravagers are going to shit themselves." Colonel Smith nodded as he spoke. "Electronic warfare. Hard to wage war when you can't see or hear anything," he spoke matter-of-factly. The final alarm went off. Sol Terra was coming. Terrans call their home planet Terra, but it's a popular Union trading planet. Humans have never been seen there, so it must be some type of alliance marker. I scratched the side of my head, trying to understand their connection. It must go far back if their oldest fleet shares a name with their planet. I lost my train of thought as the final ship entered space. It was pathetic. Significantly smaller than the other three ships, I did have to admit. What it lacked in size, it made up for in the amount of accompanying ships. The Sol Terra was small, yes, a little beaten, also yes, but the sheer volume of craft next to it blotted out the constellations behind them. They did not use size to fight with the Sol Terra, they used numbers. Throw enough bodies at the problem, and it will eventually go away. The feed cut from the broadcast of the ships, and an Earth flag took up the screen. I tried switching stations, but the same flag was on every channel. I huffed in frustration. I wanted to see humanity's fleet. "Good afternoon, Star Union. My name is Admiral Cletus. I'm also known as the Commander-in-Chief of the military. Before we begin our attack, I must speak to you all." The flag still took up the screen. "First, we must come to an understanding. What we are about to do to the Ravagers we take no joy in. It is not who we are as people. They massacred our kin, humans and Terrans alike. No mercy will be shown here until they know our pain." The flag cut out, and behind a large wooden desk sat Admiral Cletus, fully enveloped in his armour. Admiral Carroll was standing to his right. As Cletus stood, the camera zoomed out, showing his height compared to the Terran Admiral at his side. "It is time you know the truth about humans, and the relationship with Terrans." As Cletus finished speaking, he raised his hands to his helmet and unhooked the clasps. With a swift, practiced motion, brought the helmet to his side. He held that moment of silence, as if he knew whatever was said in those next few seconds would never be heard. My eye stalk stiffened and my mandibles dropped. I swear there may have been some drool. I think I speak for everyone when I say humans have truly fooled us. I don't think a single Union member wasn't staring at a screen slack-jawed. There he was, the Commander-in-Chief of the human force, side by side with Admiral Carroll. Exposed. So many questions jumped out. Were Terrans just tall humans? Were humans evolved Terrans? Perhaps humans were just short Terrans. Finally, Cletus spoke again. "Humans come from Earth, also known as Terra, our star called Sol." He clapped Admiral Carroll on the back as he continued. "I will keep the history lesson short. You see, before the Union was created, humans were destroying our planet. Our only hope was to lessen the population. We didn't want to cull our species, so we took to space. We sent the majority of our population away, called them the Terran Force, and were instructed to take in all intelligent life, to build a force, a utopia, so that none would suffer the same fate our planet did." The commander brought his hands together in front of him. "The hardest part is we instructed them to never come back. Earth would never recover if we didn't take drastic measures. As the Terran Force spent generation after generation in space, their bodies adapted to the lighter gravity. They became weaker, taller, less pronounced if you will. He looked up at Carol, much taller. Shaking his head, he looked back at the camera. They never contacted us again. Earth recovered, and we began mining the planets in our system. We eventually built a Dyson sphere for our solar system, which hid our sun. It was a great way to stay hidden from anything out there. Carol nodded along and piped up. Humanity told the Terran Force, if you ever need help, we are just one phone call away. Until a short while ago, we never needed backup, but when we called, humanity answered. Admiral Cletus spoke again. We apologize if you feel deceived. This was not our intent, but seeing as this war has taken so much from you, and now us, we believed it was time to come forth and hopefully have a home in the Union, if you will have us. The Commander-in-Chief looked past the camera. As he inhaled slowly, he closed his eyes, only opening them as he slowly exhaled. He looked directly into the camera. It felt like he was speaking directly to me. No, to the whole Union. The entirety of humanity's fleet warped, leaving the Commander-in-Chief's final words floating in space for us all. Let the crusade begin.